Welcome, kings and queens, to another episode of Unapologetic, your number one podcast. This is the show where kings and queens tell their legacies and on. So get ready for the gems to drop and pull up to the table because we're ready. Yeah, you getting that type of funding. The business is there to make money. Period. I understand that. However, I feel like you get more out of the situation where the people who you're investing in and want to work with already comes and is at a constant, hey Mel, what's up? We on the first name basis now. We're friends. We can do, I got a project that I want you to be a part of. Then I feel like that networking and collaboration really shows its work.
No, you're right,
you get
man.
called for about a project that you had no idea about.
I was just working with a client just last week. Pretty large company, man, national organization, actually headquartered out of Michigan. I won't share their name, but yeah, pretty large company, and working with a team of IT executives that all represent various departments within the IT department. So we're talking about a team of IT leaders who all manage their own teams. And one of the things that came up during our dialogue and during our conversation was like, how do you really, one of the best skills as a leader is not always delegating tasks. A lot of times when you hear a leader, you just think of somebody who's telling everybody else to do. But one of the most important things of being a real efficient leader is learning about yourself and learning about your leadership style and how that works with the personalities and the characteristics of the people that you're leading, right? And that was one of the things I had to learn a lot is my personal style, my personal personality, may be a little bit different than my professional leadership style, and knowing when and at what times do you have to turn that on and turn it off. Good, bro. Now, I wanted to finish that thought. I was touching on just a recent engagement I had with a client, and you were touching on something I think that's key. And this is something that I just share with them is like, oftentimes people, especially people who are kind of more entry level and maybe aren't not in a position of leadership within an organization, don't always see the value of the role that they play in the overall operation, right? For example, if we working at, let's just say, you working at McDonald's, you know what I mean? The guy who's just serving in the drive-through, he sees his role as just being somebody who just got to do a certain task. I got to complete this task, go to the next, and that's pretty much it. But he doesn't always see how important his role plays into the whole growth of the organization, the operation as a whole. And I think a lot of times we don't train people to think that. When you go to most jobs, they train you to think, hey, this is your job. I want you to do just this, complete these tasks, and then you're good to go. One thing that I always knew or learned early on in my professional career, and I've always had that interest, is like, I don't care what it is. I used to work at Popeye's Chicken when I was 15 years old, man. And everybody don't know that, Mel. That was one of my first jobs. I was the guy who seasoned the chicken, Popeye. And by law, I can't disclose what that special recipe is.
Yeah.
But I'm saying all that to say, man, if you can help people understand how their role plays into the bigger picture, they're going to be more willing to do that more efficiently, right? So when you're coaching people and in positions of leadership, it's your role, or I think it's important to help them understand how their role plays into the whole larger vision of the organization. That was just kind of that thought that I wanted to get out, is I think more and more organizations are understanding that and kind of starting to transition to that kind of thought process. But I think it's key, because if you think about, if I can better understand how my role plays into the bigger picture, that's going to make me want to be more successful and efficient at whatever my role is within the whole.
Man, I agree with that. I told one of my friends is getting ready to start one of his first businesses, and he asked me a question I knew he was going to ask. I didn't know when, but he was like, "Hey, bro, you've been in business for a few years. Let me ask you something." And I was like, "What's up?" And he stated, "I want to hire this person to do this particular job for me, but I don't." And I was like, "Okay, so if you hire them, would that be a one-time thing, or do you have to keep hiring them, or just have them on the team?" And then he was like, "Well, if I pay them for that one particular job, what you think that you ain't gonna be getting done?" And I stated like, "Yes, I think it get done, but it only get done to a regular standard, to the status quo. If you apply this same mindset and tell the person that they're, instead of hiring you to do a job, invest in you to be a part of the job, to be a part of what I'm building. I don't want you to, how, because that right there, I feel like it triggers a mind, triggers something in the mind when we hear, I want to hire you, Kareem, for blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right. Instead of me, I want to work with you. I want to invest with you. I want you to invest within me in my business because I see what you have and I need that for myself. You know, that type of language, a different type of language really helps. And
No,
I
you're right.
hear that when you say, uh, especially the example that you give of the logistics business, how you yourself don't really, grasp that, didn't really grasp at first how big it was until you did your research. And
Mhm.
then you listen to an outside party that stated, well, he gave his warning, but at the same time, y'all completed each other. Even though you have some doubts, you always going to need that strong mind that help push you.
Exactly.
And you need all that in the bowl. So I see the leadership skills and talents that you have to offer, to anybody.
No, I appreciate that, bro. Because man, what work for one person may not work for everybody, right? There are certain things that have been proven. That, and when you talk about successful leaders and successful entrepreneurs, there are some things that you can hone in on that are proven. But I'm saying all that to say that, if I listen to the naysayers and to the non-believers, man, I wouldn't be half the man who I am today, man. So
Mm,
having that perspective is key, and being able to take that knowledge and not take it personal, right? Take that perspective and figure out what you can learn from it. And some things, there have been certain things, and I've been doing this more lately as well, is saying no, right?
mm,
And that was something I really had to learn, man. And I think I shared that with you before when we did the first episode. Is like coming from a space where we come from, right?
yeah,
Inner city, young kids trying to find their way, maybe not having as much exposure to certain opportunities in the corporate and professional space, and then being blessed with an opportunity to be in these positions of power and be around these leaders of various organizations and entities. And at first glance, it's like, I'm so blessed to be in this room. I got friends who are incarcerated. I got a close friend of mine right now who's, going through his own troubles as it relates to law enforcement. I have some friends who aren't even here, man. One of my childhood friends out of Kalamazoo, man, lost his life back in 2003. My guy's name is Jeremy Young. We call him J Rock out of Kalamazoo. But I say all that to say, when you first step into that room, you like, I'm here. You feel like you've arrived. And it's like
yeah,
every opportunity that's here, yeah, I'm taking advantage of that. I'm hopping on that. What you need, I can do it, or I can figure out how to connect you with somebody who can do it. And what you'll find is that although there's power in that, and being able to not being able to kind of receive the various opportunities and being somebody who people know they can depend on, it
right.
also takes away from how valuable you can be in the things that you want to do. So I had to kind of learn that happy medium, man, and learn when to say no and when to scale back. I just had an opportunity that was presented just a couple weeks ago, and pretty decent opportunity. It was something within my wheelhouse, but not necessarily something that I am super passionate about, but definitely within my wheelhouse. And at first, I'm going back to that same survival mindset where we like,
Right.
I'm jumping on every opportunity. And then I had to kind of take a thought back and say, hey, man, maybe it's not the best timing to explore that opportunity. You know what I mean? Maybe it's best to continue to build up on the current partnerships and projects that you already have. And then as that opportunity circles back next year, be in a better position and have more time and commitment to be able to dedicate to that. So that's something I had to learn and still learning, man. It's hard. It's super hard for me to do, man. But you start to see the value in it real quick once you can. And one thing I'll share with you before we move on with the conversation is to one of the greatest benefits for me, as I'm now approaching month 6, being a full-time entrepreneur, is that being able to own my own time. You can't put a value to that. You know what I'm saying? You can't put a dollar amount to that. You know, I'm picking my
That's
kids up
real.
from school and dropping them off. And I did a lot of that, you know, still even when I was working, but picking them up and dropping them off from school and being able to spend more time with them on their homework, or being able to just to take the time to myself and just say, I just want to kick back and just
Right.
not feel the pressures of always running so much, right? And that's one thing you can't put a value to, man, is being able to own your own time. And that's one of the major benefits that I've been able to find in the entrepreneurial world.
Man, I agree with that. I agree with that. Because time, even though the money is over glorified in our society, just but when you have been in positions where you're around multimillionaires and huge profit ceremonies and whatever, it
Right,
becomes numb to you, because now it's almost like your brain switches, and then you start to think, man, I'm already at this age. I already
right,
completed this project that I want to do, or this particular goal. I know my time is limited, so I want to make the best out of it. And I understand now, like, for example, I remember growing up when you was a kid, your mom always tell you, go and take a nap. Like, I don't want to go take a nap. It's sunny outside. I want to go outside, play. All of a sudden, now that you in your 20s, man, I'm ready to go take a nap. I don't care what time it is. And it's like that little simple thing is incredible how it switches later on in your life. And not just in the simplest things, but in the most proactive parts of your business or whatever you're doing. And you see the value of that little thing.
right.
I mean, to me, that, I know most people probably wouldn't agree, but to me, that's more valuable than a dollar.
For sure. Yeah. And being able to recognize your own growth. I laughed when you said the nap, when you said the joke about taking a nap. I still haven't quite figured out how to take a nap myself. Just the thought of being asleep during the day, my OCD kicks in, and I'm like, what opportunity are you missing out on while you sleep at 2 o'clock? But you made me think of my sister. She's what I like to call a serial napper. She's
A serial
she
napper.
won't she won't hesitate to take a nap, man.
Man, but it refreshes you, man, because you're like a car. After a while, you're gonna have to change the oil.
Mm.
You're gonna have to feed yourself nutrients. You're gonna have to reset, like your phone. After a while, that phone gonna give out. Either that
Oh, that's
screen
for
gonna
sure.
crack or something gonna jitter on that phone. And so that's why we have these warnings when we purchase these items. Turn off phone certain
Right.
amount of hours. Even your phone gives, certain phones give notifications like that.
No, for sure.
So it's so they in our realm, we call the brain the most powerful. In my realm, should I say? I don't know if you share the same mindset, but I feel like the mind is the most powerful thing on the planet, hands down. It's powerful than a gun, a nuclear missile, because somebody had to think of that to create
Right. Right. That's
it.
where it all starts.
Right. So having that type of mindset and hearing you, especially when uh all the accomplishments you have done, and I remember you telling me in our first conversation about you have real bad OCD. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, I can't shut my mind off half the time.
Mm-mm.
And I could back then I could relate, but I personally ended up crashing,
Mm.
at and I ended up thank God I was at home and I finally I just crashed. I couldn't wake up. I was just tired. And that showed me the importance of,
Right.
you
Having
know,
that self-care, those self-care regimens, and yeah.
man, and I was wondering, I want to ask you, before we, sum everything up, what type of self-care is important to you? Because you have others that follow your footsteps that is going to follow you in the future. And so they're going to hit a pinnacle like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you give them as advice to say, yes or no, or however?
Yeah, man. I think it's different for everybody, right? For me, self-care for me looks like one thing. I'm a huge love to be outdoors, right? And that's something I want to touch on quick too, is some of the advocacy that I've been doing as of late in the environmental climate justice space and how that's grown. But one thing for me, man, is getting outdoors. If I can get outside for a minute, it just does something for me. So being outdoors is a big one for me, and just kind of taking your mind away from that environment and just really breathing in that fresh air, that does wonders for me. Music is another one, right? I love music, being able to play music in the background while I'm working, or music in the car. I got my earbuds on, whatever that looks like. Various genres of music, everything from, I might get the little smooth jazz going, or you might catch me full throttle in on some Drake, Lil Durk, whatever that looks like, Lil Tyler. I have some R&B.
Right.
Having that the love for music is another thing for me. And then just really spending time with the people who matter the most to me, right? That does wonders for me, and that kind of helps me recharge and understand why we doing what we're doing. So those are kind of a few things for me. I want to get more in the gym. That was one thing that I had committed to this year. I'm about 5 months late. We still got time to turn it around.
I'm there with you, bro. Don't feel
I
bad.
want to incorporate that into my regimen at least 3 or 4 times a week, and doing more reading, and just taking the time to kind of scale back, but also help yourself grow personally as well.
That's real. That's real. Now you don't stop. You just said something about environmental.
So I wanted to touch on that. I think we touched on some of that before in the first one. So, obviously a big part of my role at NAACP, and I think where I really kind of developed a part of my brand as a community advocate and organizer as well, was at the NAACP. But even before that, a lot of people don't know, I have a previous experience working with the UAW as well. So I have a labor background as well. I served in a role as a UAW chair with UAW Local 2145, and that was during my time at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And shout out to Janice Hilliard, who's the current president and then president then, and she brought me on board and kind of introduced me to a lot of people, and a lot of relationships that I still value and hold close today were developed during my time at Blue Cross. So, but to your point, where I'm getting at, as far as, although I've transitioned into the more for-profit space with the consulting business full time, it was important to me that I still stayed involved with the work with some of the work, and the work that meant the most to me as it relates to being a community advocate. And some of my main passionate areas as an advocate, obviously, are criminal justice reform, economic development, public safety, and not last but not least, environmental climate justice, right?